Welcome to another episode of Mailbag Monday. I'm Nick Williams, founder of DeepBridge Consulting. Today, we're going to be talking about storytelling. How the power of storytelling can dramatically affect your click-through rate and ultimately your conversion. Stick around. Good morning. Welcome back, everyone, to another new week. It's good to have you here on another Monday, and we haven't seen you in a couple of days if you catch our Friday content or even our Wednesday content, but if you're just a Mailbag Monday subscriber, welcome back. So today we're going to dig straight in, and this question actually comes straight from the mailbag from James, and let's read James's question, and then we can get into some of the really interesting things about James's question and some actionable insight around it, so everyone can take on this Monday can take some tips and tidbits away and apply it this morning. So James asks, he's a marketing director and a content enthusiast. Hey James, thanks for subscribing, really appreciate it. Hey Nick, I feel like we're marketing on the right platforms, but engagement on our advertisement is stagnant despite the freshness of our content. Any CTA tricks up your sleeve to help make our marketing dollars work harder for us? Hopefully I'll get the feature this week, James. So James, yeah, you did get the feature. And this is also, it helps that you're a content enthusiast, a self-proclaimed. So that's good. We're that too here. So one of the main things that I liked about your question was you referenced, despite the freshness of our content. So this is something that a lot of people talk about, or a lot of questions that come to us is mentioning, well, we're writing all the time, we're writing new things, but we're not getting any different levels of engagement. There's one thing that you're not considering when you ask that question. It's just because you create new content does not mean that people owe you their attention. That does not mean that just because you make it, they're gonna read it. And it's really important to understand that. Because if you understand that, you can apply that thinking all throughout your copy and your headlines and just your overall storytelling, which is why we're going to get into what we're going to get into today. The hook, line, sinker method is something that has worked so incredibly well for us. And it's based on some just statistical frameworks of why people consume, why people open. And we've tested this so many ways. We've tested this in email marketing. We've tested this in blog content creation. We've tested this even in written form, in podcast form. So wherever DeepBridge is making content, you can see it woven throughout. And depending on the consumer, depending on a lot of different avenues where they are on the journey, you'll see different forms, different applications of the hook, line, sinker method, but every single word, in particular on the headline, the subheaders, and our calls to action, all follow the hook, line, sinker method. They're all highly calculated. They're all A/B tested. So we're going to help you understand that today so you can start to apply it at a high level at least. So hook, line, sinker, it's exactly like the idiom suggests, but instead of thinking about your content as just, these are just, we need to add a header and this content is here just to inform them. You need to start using your content as a way to get deeper levels of engagement in your brand. Now, that very slight distinction is really important. Content you shouldn't be using just for SEO purposes. Your content should have a mission. And it's think about it that seriously. Your content has a mission. And if you don't write content with a clear mission in mind that, look, this could go viral. If this goes viral, if this lands on my ideal customer's lap at the right time, would they buy? It should have a mission. And if you don't do that, your content runs the risk of just turning into stale words, just copy that does nothing. And the way to ensure that at least aesthetically, your content gets consumed is to follow hook, line, sinker. So when we talk about the hook, we're going to be referring to the header. When we talk about the line, we're going to be talking about all of the information under the header, or if it's content, the actual meat of the blog. And when we talk about sinker, we're going to always be talking about the call to action. So again, depending on the copy or content length, if it's an ad, this is actually going to be the button. If it's content, it's going to be the closing paragraph. It's going to be what's the offer, what's going to get them to do something. So we'll go through it, the hook, line, sinker in that method, with the caveat understanding that depending on the type of content you're creating. If it's an ad, a Facebook ad, if it's, you're creating a little bit more editorial, which would be long form content, which is, something we do. So 1,000+ words, think of that as editorial. Regardless, you can adapt this model. And so let's start with the hook. So the hook is everything. The hook, if you had to spend the most amount of time on any one part of your content or copy, it's got to be the hook. Because the hook is the main thing. It's the main thing that gets someone to open or read or consume whatever you're creating, whatever you just spend hours on. That's the main thing, that's the main driver of that decision. So if you can write a really good hook, if you can write a really good header, then that right there is going to be your driver of success for that piece of content. You need to write your hook either one of two ways. You could do a curious-based approach, or you could do a value-based approach. And these are two things in the hook, line, sinker method that have worked really well for us. We've seen the curious-based approach to writing headers work really well in situations where you are working with a sophisticated client and you understand their needs really well. For instance, if this was a blog, we would title this blog, "Stop Lighting Your Marketing Dollars on Fire with These 3 Simple Fixes." Now, the reason that is attractive is because, number one, we're using language that our ideal client knows and understands. Lighting your marketing dollars on fire. That's not going to make sense to a lot of people. It's going to make sense to a director, a CMO, someone who their big pain is actually marketing waste. So if you're listening to this and you're going, yes, I understand exactly what he's talking about, is because as a marketer, you are looking for ROI, but at the end of the day, it's not necessarily how drastically powerful can you make your marketing dollars actually work. It's how can I stop flushing them down the toilet? And actually, James, you ask it in a way that makes perfect sense. And in your rhetoric, I don't know if as you were thinking about it, that's a problem or a pain point of yours is you don't really have a total understanding of how to make your marketing dollars work harder, but you use those exact words. And so that's something we see a lot with very sophisticated, intelligent clients who these are the type of clients, James, like you, these are the type of people that we prefer is because we can speak this language. The next approach to writing headers would be a value-based approach. So the value-based approach delivers immediately right off the bat what's in it for the consumer. We talk about it a lot. What's in it for you? What's in it for you? That's a question you need to be answering for the ideal customer or client. And if you can explain what's in it for them, and they immediately understand the value, not just the benefits, the value. What's the tangible representation of what they're getting out of whatever good or service you're offering them? If you can write a header that's based on the value, they're automatically going to be sold. And that's with the caveat that you understand their problems and understand the benefits they're looking for to actually identify and speak to the value they would find attractive. So if you can write a value-based header that immediately delivers on the value they need or want, then you're automatically going to dramatically increase that conversion and that likelihood that they're going to consume your content. So like we talked about, you can either go with the curious-based approach, which is you can go with a controversial headline, just something to draw them in, make it worthwhile. Don't deliver too much of the information that's actually in the article. Just hit something that goes, okay, yeah, that's interesting to me. How can I stop lighting my marketing dollars on fire? It's a little bit more playful. If you can go with a curious-based approach, and then also, like we talked about, the second approach to headlines is going to be the value-based approach. So if you can understand what your actual consumer wants, and if you can speak to that value they're going to get out of your content, and they can understand that quickly and it's tangible, they're going to consume that content. So curious and value. Now the next phase in the hook, line, sinker method is line. So when you think about line, we're going to think about everything under the header. When you are writing content, when you're writing copy, the goal of anything you write is to get them to read the next thing, right? It's progression. The one thing you want to be touching on is what is the objection and how can I solve that objection? This is where you're basically playing conflict resolution. You're going to be going through every problem your consumer has, and you're going to be answering that question, that big, what's the stopping point? What's the barrier to actually get them to purchase what I'm trying to sell them? So if you're doing a really good job of understanding what your client wants, why they want it, and how to deliver on that, then you're going to do a really good job with the line aspect. So if you're talking about a 15-second, commercial, if you're talking about a digital spot that's 6-second bumper ad, whatever the case is, whatever your headline is and the supporting subcopy, that line, if you can do a really good job of answering all of their needs, all of their concerns, they're going to immediately be sold in. And like we talked about with the header, if you can describe your customer's problems better than they can actually describe it themselves, you're going to get a lot more trust and immediate credibility right off the bat. We've talked about the hook. We've talked about the headers. We've talked about the line, which is the subcopy. Now we're going to talk about the sinker. And the sinker is exactly what it sounds like. The sinker, the call to action, as it comes to be, is so important. Because if you're not actually asking your consumer or whoever is actually reading your content, if you're not actually asking them to do something, they're not going to do something. It's that simple. Like, there's no reason to make this difficult. If you don't tell them to follow something or to subscribe or to learn more, they're not going to do any of those things. People will not go out of their way to do anything that adds any extra work. And the only reason that they would is that you ask them to and they feel like they can trust you and that it's a good idea, but they're certainly not going to do it on their own. And at least you shouldn't expect them to do it on their own. So whenever you're in a situation in which you're producing content or trying to deliver some value, you need to ask for the sale. You need to ask for the engagement, ask for the opt-in, the conversion. And if you don't, they won't. But the one thing to remember is this is a path. This is a journey. We've talked about customer journeys enough, and we can refer you to some resources. Anyone interested in James in particular, you're talking about some call to action tricks and looking at some of your actual copy and some of your hooks and offers. The one thing I would challenge you on and challenge anyone on is the journey and the path. Those aren't just buzzwords. The customer really is on a journey. It is a path to purchase. It's not it's not just a pit stop. You have multiple engagement points. You have multiple barriers to entry that you're going to have to take time to resolve. And so when you're actually trying to close someone, when you're creating a call to action, do not ask for too much, right? Like, you need to erode the barrier, but you're not going to obliterate them in 15 seconds of copy, in 6 seconds of copy, and even 1,000-word blog content. Research has shown that less than 5%, 3 to 5% of people actually go to your website and buy just on the first engagement. It just doesn't happen. But most people are just jumping to, hey, I've got this stuff. Here you go. We've got this content. Now, do you want to buy my stuff? No. The answer is 95% no. And the people who are already buying, they've either, number one, they've got an immediate bleeding neck problem and you're solving the issue. Or number two, they already knew about you. But most people don't have either of those two things. But that doesn't mean that you can't create a predictable system in which you can convert more. So whatever type of content you're creating, whether it's a Facebook ad, whether it's long form copy, closing paragraph, whatever your call to action, your sinker is going to be, whatever that I'm going to ask for this engagement is going to be, you need to make sure that you're not going over the top and you're not breaching and pretending these barriers don't exist, because that's how you lose your customer. So if you write 1,000 words, you can't just come at the end and say, buy this now, because they're not ready to buy. But you have to nurture that. And through your nurture sequence, you get their email, and then you do some email marketing, and all of your copy in your email marketing should be about delivering value. So much so that when they read this after 4 to 6 engagements, that's about right. That's about the path to purchase that results in an actual conversion. After about 4 engagements, they're going to actually feel comfortable about making the purchase. But you can't just automatically assume that they're ready to buy right then and there. So stop delivering content and then saying, look, it's time to buy. Do you want to buy my stuff? No, don't ask for it yet. Just keep delivering value. And when they're ready, they'll make the purchase. If you embed the hook, line, sinker method in your copy, James and anyone else out there, whoever's creating content, if you're a marketer, a person in sales, it doesn't really matter. If you have a customer and you have something to sell them on, you're going to want to use the hook, line, sinker method. Now, we've got some other resources around this, but at high level, I wanted to walk through a proven process and a proven model that's statistically proven to actually work and convert better. So if you have any questions, reach out Nick Williams at DeepBridgeConsulting.com. We'll be back here next Monday with more Mailbag Monday. So congrats, James. You did win the feature this week. So I hope everyone, I'll probably get a lot more questions saying feature me. But, we'll get to everyone. And if you want to see some more content just like this, we don't just stop on Mondays. We've got Whiteboard Wednesdays. We've even got Funnel Fridays. Go ahead and become a member, and you can get all this information, not just in podcast form, but we're also going to be creating the video content series available for everyone too, as long as some other goodies. So we'll see you next Monday, and hopefully Wednesday and Friday. See you soon.